We can go ahead and kick off the meeting, Madam Chair.
We will call the Parks and Recreation Board meeting to order. And we will do approval of the minutes. Anybody have any changes to the meeting minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Motion to accept the minutes, Eric.
And a second.
Second. Okay.
Okay.
Just to confirm, we have two folks logged in via the phone. I believe one is Chuck. Who's the other one?
Did we get a second?
Happy, I'll second. Awesome.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is an action related to the approval of Parks and Recreation Board representative to the Conservation Advisory Board. And I believe Dr. Francine Romero is the chair and will stay on if we approve it. So I will take a motion to approve Francine Romero staying on.
We do have a presentation on that, Madam Chair. We do have a presentation on that.
Oh, we have a presentation on that? Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Parks and Recreation Board. My name is Philip Covington. I'm the Special Projects Manager for the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program. I've met a few of you, but some of you I have not met, so just wanted to formally introduce myself again. Today, as Madam Chair mentioned, we are requesting consideration for a reappointment to the Conservation Advisory Board for a member of the Parks and Recreation Board. So just a quick overview, the CAB, or the Conservation Advisory Board, is a 9-member board appointed by City Council, and representatives are recommended by the recommending organizations or are represented on the CAB. They are 2-year terms. There is no term limit, and the terms run concurrent with the current City Council. And essentially, the CAB oversees the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program. It reviews and approves all of our property acquisitions and our demonstration projects that are funded through the sales tax funding that has currently been collected for the program. So Dr. Francine Romero is the current representative on the CAB. She's served on the CAB both as a member and as the chair for over 10 years. And so we are recommending a recommendation for reappointment of Dr. Romero to the CAB again. And so we're needing a nomination today from the Parks and Recreation Board for her recommended reappointment. Next slide. So just a little background information on Dr. Romero. She's certainly no stranger to city boards and commissions and council appointed boards and activities. She currently serves again as the board of the CAB. She's an associate dean with the UTSA College of Public Policy, and she's also a professor with the Masters of Public Administration and the Urban and Regional Planning programs at UTSA. And she's conducted extensive research on a number of projects and ideas, including civil rights, land use, and policy outcomes, things of that nature. She does have a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from California State University at San Bernardino, and she has her Master's of Arts and her doctorate, both in Political Science from the University of California, Riverside. She is the ex officio member of the city's Planning Commission, and she's the former vice chair for the Parks and Recreation Board and currently serves as the Parks and Recreation Board's representative on the Conservation Advisory Board, as well as several other citizen advisory groups. So again, we're recommending reappointment of Dr. Romero to the CAB, and we're requesting your consideration for her nomination.
Does that mute myself?
You're good. You're good.
All right, we will take a motion for the nomination to reappoint Dr. Francine Romero to the Conservation Advisory Board.
So moved.
And a second?
This is Allison. I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Dr. Francine Romero has been reappointed.
Thank you so much, and I will relay the good news to Dr. Romero.
Madam Chair, before we go on, just a point of housekeeping, just to confirm attendance, I have someone logged in on the phone. I know Chuck is in via phone. Is Anthony or Melinda in either of you? You guys are both on mute, so make sure you take yourself off mute.
Sorry, I'm here.
Perfect, thank you, Melinda.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the briefing on Edwards Aquifer Protection Program general updates. And I believe Homer is going to introduce that.
Yes, Madam Chair, good evening, and all Park Board members. So I think it's been a while since we've had a really good deep dive and thorough briefing on the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program. It seemed very fitting with the reappointment of Dr. Francine Romero that we asked Philip to go ahead and provide that overview. Of course, very clearly we have the Conservation Advisory Board, so while they get to hear program updates very frequently, wanted to make sure that we're bringing the same level of information to this advisory board so that you have the latest and greatest as we head into our fiscal year 22 operating year that begins October 1. So that being said, I will mute myself and turn the virtual room over to Philip.
Thank you very much, Homer. So Ryan, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide. I will provide just a brief program background. It looks like my title slide got a little messed up, but that's okay. Just a little background information on the Edwards program. So obviously this is a program that protects the Edwards Aquifer, which is the city of San Antonio's primary source of drinking water. The idea for the protection program was actually born back around the 1970s when a group of interested stakeholders began campaigning for funds to begin protecting the Edwards Aquifer because there was so much rapid development occurring over the recharge zone in Bexar County. Ultimately, we were able to secure our first round of funding in the year 2000, which was approved by San Antonio voters. It was known as Proposition 3 and allowed us to begin acquiring property over the recharge and contributing zone in Bexar County, both for aquifer protection as well as for park venue expansion. This later became known as Proposition 1, which allowed us to expand outside of Bexar County and protect property through acquisition of conservation easements, as well as purchasing land outright for aquifer protection purposes. So the purpose of the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program is to protect the quality and the quantity of water recharging into the Edwards Aquifer through land acquisition and through acquisition of conservation easements on privately owned property. And again, as we visited about a little earlier, the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program is overseen by the Conservation Advisory Board. And it looks like we lost our PowerPoint. But I provided a little graph here that shows an overview of the water sources currently in the San Antonio water system portfolio. So as you'll see, about 80% of the water comes directly from the Edwards Aquifer. And as the city is beginning, as SAWS is beginning to diversify, they're identifying and securing additional sources of water to lessen our need for the Edwards. But for the foreseeable future, it looks like the Edwards will be our majority and primary source of drinking water for the city. Next slide, please.
Philip, hold on just a second. I'm switching.
No problem.
With me, I was on my laptop, and that's what caused the issue with the title slides.
No worries.
So I'm switching with Kathy. Give me 2 seconds. I'm sorry. I love technology.
Good times. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so this is an overview of our approved funding programs to date. So again, early in the program, the first round was known as Proposition 3, approved in 2000 for $45 million. This was for acquisition of properties here in Bear County. A large amount of the acreage protected early in the program is now part of Government Canyon, which was conveyed to Texas Parks and Wildlife back in 2014. We also acquired properties such as Rancho Diana using that source of funding. Then in 2005, 2010, and 2015, we were approved for $90 million each 5-year cycle for acquisition of property and conservation easements within our target area. In 2015, we were also approved for $10 million for funding of water quality projects here in Bear County for hopefully identifying best management practices and low impact design features that can be implemented hopefully into future codes and development here in Bear County. More recently, in the fall of 2020, funding changed for this program. So we are no longer going to be funded through the local sales tax, the 1/8 cent sales tax, as you've likely heard associated with this program. We will now, in the future, be funded through the San Antonio Municipal Facilities Corporation. So $100 million was approved for this future program over a 10-year period. It will be funded primarily through a combination of short-term and long-term debt issued through the Municipal Facilities Corporation, as well as from other alternative funding sources such as SAWS revenue to fund the program in the future. So we have collected to date about $325 million, $315 million of which is for acquisition of conservation easements and property. The additional $10 million is for the demonstration projects, which we'll talk about a little more in a moment. And so to date, we've expended about $305 million out of that 325, and we anticipate we will expend the remaining balance of the 2015 Prop 1 funds towards the end of this next fiscal year 2022. So with the new funding, that should come online beginning in fiscal year 2023, and there will be no changes in the program's administration through the change in funding. Next slide, please. So this is a cross-section of the aquifer and how the recharge process works. So you'll see it's broken down into three major zones, one being the contributing zone, which is where the water, generally it's going to be falling in the hills up in the hill country. It makes its way down the hills through the streams and rivers, downstream into the recharge zone, where the water ultimately enters into the ground through fractures, through caves, through other recharge features like sinkholes, and then ultimately makes its way down into the artesian zone. As you'll see on one of the next slides, we've protected a lot of land out in our western counties, in Medina and Uvalde County, as well as up in the contributing zone in Bandera and Kendall County. The reason for protecting properties out west is about 70% of our recharge that makes its way to San Antonio originates in these western counties. So it's very critical that we protect what's recharging out in our western counties, because it's ultimately making its way to the San Antonio pool. So the recharge zone is very important, but the contributing zone is also extremely important in protecting the quality and quantity of water that's ultimately making its way down into the recharge zone. The vast majority of San Antonio is located in the artesian zone. So this is an area where you're able to pump water out of the aquifer, but there's not much, if any, recharge occurring in this area. So our funding is primarily limited to our target area, which is in the recharge and contributing zones. Next slide, please. So a little highlighted information on conservation easement. So this is a voluntary conservation program. We do not have eminent domain authority. So all of our properties that are protected were voluntarily protected by their owners under the program. They are perpetual once acquired, so the easements don't go away. They don't get bought out. Once a property is protected, it's protected forever. About 95% of our acquisitions are protected by conservation easements. We do occasionally buy land in fee and hold it for it's a natural area or for future park expansion or development. But acquisition of conservation easements essentially allows the landowner to continue to own the property, but this program is essentially purchasing their development rights and limits the amount of future development that can occur on that property. So we're basically getting the best of both worlds. We're protecting the aquifer, but we're also not inheriting the long-term ownership and maintenance costs of that property. So again, we're purchasing development rights by protecting the acreage, and all of our properties are monitored on an annual basis, both by the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program staff and through an interlocal agreement with the Edwards Aquifer Authority. Next slide, please. So our demonstration projects, we talked a little bit about this. In the 2015 election, $10 million was dedicated for water quality projects in the urbanized areas of Bexar County. So this is in the recharge and contributing zone. We do have an interlocal agreement with San Antonio River Authority. They assist us with the project management and procurement process for the demonstration project program. All of the qualifying projects, they have to be located over the recharge and contributing zones in Bexar County. They can't be outside of Bexar County. And essentially, these projects are seeking to improve water quality in areas that do not meet or exceed the current Texas Commission on Environmental Quality standards. To date, we have committed the full $10 million for 11 projects and for the interlocal agreement with the San Antonio River Authority. And we anticipate that the last of the funded projects will be completed by spring of 2025. Next slide. So our land acquisition and identification process has been established and set by two groups. One is our scientific evaluation team, and it's a science-based advisory group, which is responsible for basically setting up and updating our weighting matrix for our GIS spatial model, and it helps us rank our properties on several different factors, one being water resources, the proximity to water, biology, has the land been cleared or is it completely intact and providing the maximum amount of recharge it can provide. Property size is also a factor. Obviously, the larger the property we're able to protect, the more recharge benefit we're able to protect as well. And then the location of the property. If it's located adjacent to an existing protected property through our program, or if it's adjacent to other protected land, then that will ultimately give that property a higher ranking in our initial ranking of the property. So we have a land acquisition team that, in addition to our staff, they assist us in the evaluation of properties and considering them as potential candidates for this program. We work with two nonprofit conservation organizations, one being Green Spaces Alliance of South Texas. The other is the Nature Conservancy. So our land acquisition team members, they assist us with the negotiation of our conservation easements, and they also assist us in the due diligence process as we're evaluating properties under the program. Next slide. This is an overview of our evaluation process from beginning to end. So initially, we're looking at properties through our GIS model to see how they rank in terms of known geological features, their size, and their location. If a property is believed to be a good fit for the program, then we ultimately present that property for stage 1 due diligence to the Conservation Advisory Board. If that's approved, then we will proceed with a geological assessment, which is conducted by the Edwards Aquifer Authority. This is a boots on the ground assessment that actually looks for the presence of recharge features and determines, which watershed the property is located in. It ultimately ranks the property in terms of what the benefit would be to the city in terms of water quality and quantity if we protected it. We also, as part of the stage 1 due diligence process, order a property appraisal to determine the value of the property if being purchased in fee. And we also will appraise this appraisal process will also determine the value of the conservation easement if we decide to pursue that route. So if all goes well under the stage 1 process, we will return to the Conservation Advisory Board to provide an update on the stage 1 due diligence process and then request stage 2 due diligence approval. The stage 2 due diligence process involves environmental assessment reports to determine the current conditions on the property and to establish a baseline for future monitoring purposes. And then we're also ordering a property survey to determine the boundary of the property if being purchased in fee or the boundary of the conservation easement itself in preparation for closing. Once that process is completed, then we do return to the Conservation Advisory Board one final time for a request of final approval and a recommendation for acquisition to the City Council. And once that occurs, then we proceed with council presentation. And if council approves, then we move forward ultimately to the closing process. Next slide, please. So just a little information on the Conservation Advisory Board. Again, it's comprised of 9 members, which are appointed by City Council. Representatives from the CAB include, of course, the Parks and Recreation Director, a representative from the Parks Board, which is currently Dr. Romero, Edwards Aquifer Authority, the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation, San Antonio River Authority, the San Antonio Water System, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and we have representatives from Medina County and Uvalde County. Next slide. So this is an overview of the properties that the Edwards program has protected to date. These are the properties shaded in yellow. There's also properties you'll see that are shaded in orange that have been protected by other land trusts or by other entities such as Texas Parks and Wildlife or San Antonio Water System. So this shows the recharge zone, or the artesian zone here in blue. The recharge zone is in pink, and where most of our properties are protected. And now we are starting to look at opportunities to protect key properties and watersheds in the contributing zone as well, here in the greenish yellow shaded area. Next slide, please. So the Edwards program, our strategies are to continue to target properties over the recharge and contributing zones in accordance with our program funding. To date, we have protected just over 164,000 acres, and we project protecting approximately 175,000 acres by the end of the 2015 funding program. And we are looking to protect important watersheds within the contributing zone as well as the recharge zone, as well as working to connect existing gaps in our portfolio, areas where we haven't protected, unprotected land in between properties that we've already protected. So any opportunities we can to gain more contiguity, we certainly pursue those opportunities. And I believe that is the last slide in my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I'm sorry, any comments or questions? Anyone?
Just a quick question, quick comment. This is a fantastic program. It's so important. What are the 11, you said the urban water, like the quality projects that are going to be done? What do those look like? And what types of things are those?
We have a wide range of projects. We have several construction projects. One of them will be at Clausen Stubing Ranch. They're doing a permeable pavement project. So they're looking at 4 different types of permeable pavement surfaces and evaluating the amount of recharge and what they're capturing through that water to see which permeable pavement surface is the best performer. And so ultimately that recommendation can carry forward into future development projects. We're also, we've also funded a project, several projects through UTSA. One of them is a living laboratory, which will focus on the importance of the Edwards Aquifer, and it will serve as a educational facility, both for K through 12 students, as well as for university students as well, to understand the importance of the aquifer. They will also have some low impact development features that can be, watched in real time and can be observed over time to see how well they're performing. That is actually on the UTSA campus. We also have a training program for first responders that Texas A&M is overseeing. They are working directly with San Antonio Fire Department to establish a database of recharge features within the recharge zone here in Bexar County, so that in the event we have a fire, say at a Home Depot over the recharge zone, the fire department will be aware of recharge features that could be negatively impacted by runoff from extinguishing that fire, so that they can take a look at how best to attack that fire without contributing the aquifer in a similar manner that affected when we had the mulch fire out in Helotes about 10 years ago. So part of it will be establishing that database, as well as creating a training program for the first responders, so that they're A, aware of this database that will be aware to them, and B, establishing best practices on how to extinguish emergency fire situations over the recharge zone. So those are just a few examples of projects that this program is funded.
Thank you. That's excellent.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I'd like to provide just one more tidbit of information. So one of the things that we've been working with the Conservation Advisory Board on is really looking at a water study that would identify long-term what the needs are of the community. And so we're still working through that, and we will be continuing that dialogue with them this fall. We are working with EAA to help also figure that out. And we did have a briefing recently, but it was just really more high-level thoughts and themes. And where we landed there was kind of let everybody think on it, and then we would come back and bring EAA forward for a presentation. And as that evolves, we'll make sure to also bring that same information here, because we know that's been one of the questions that's been asked is, how much do we need, you know, and we're still trying to work through all of that in concert with the Conservation Advisory Board. So wanted to make sure everyone had that information as well.
Thank you, Homer.
Yes, ma'am.
With this, all, we'll go to the next item, and it's a briefing on Howard W. Creek Greenway Trail System general update. Homer, you have something for that?
Yes, we do. So continuing the theme of our venues program and sales tax funded programs, another very popular one is the Howard W. Creek Greenway Trail System. And Brandon Ross is here this evening to present on this item. Brandon, I will mute myself and let you take it from here.
Thank you, Homer. And it's good to see everybody again. I'm happy to go over updates with this presentation and take any questions that you guys have toward the end. But if somebody does have something to say, then I think Ryan, just let me know if you see somebody's got their hand up. You can go to the next slide. So where we are to date is we have 82 miles of trail completed. On the map that you have in front of you, those are all of the dark green trails. We have 15 miles of trail under construction, and then another 15 miles of trail that are in various phases of being planned, or they're in design already. Those are going to be the ones that are there, and those are funded. Those are the ones that are in dashed lines that you see on the map. We've also acquired now over 1,600 acres of land along San Antonio Creek, so we're proud of that in the spirit of open space preservation. Next slide. So just wanted to kind of hone in on some of the most recent and upcoming projects that we have. These are the ones that are under construction. So these are ones that are going to be coming online soon, available and open to the public. We have the Rim project up, well, it's north of the Rim on Leon Creek Greenway. It goes between the Rim and Eisenhower Park. That's 1.8 miles, and I'll drill down into that in a little bit more depth in just a minute. That's one that's been long anticipated that will connect the Leon Creek Greenway with the Solada Creek Greenway system. We also have the Leon Trail between Levi Strauss Park and Lackland Monument. That's in District 4. We have these two projects that are completed recently. A new trailhead on East Commerce Street that that's offering new parking and amenities and things to try to beef up some of the amenities and parking options that we have for the Solada Creek Greenway on the east side. We also have the Wilshire Terrace Park connection that's recently been completed. That's also part of that east side development we're trying to do to try to raise the level of amenities and connections that are along the east side trails on Salato. We have Salato from Southside Alliance to Southeast Military. That's another 3.1 miles that's going to connect and extend the Solada Creek Greenway further south. West Side Creek's projects, including Apache Creek between 19th and San Jacinto and Casiano Park. Apache Creek on the Brazos Street it's a connection that basically ties the Apache Creek Greenway into the sidewalk there at Brazos Street with a beautiful arrangement of trail amenities. Zarzamora Creek is another one. It's 1.5 miles. It's under construction that will extend the Greenway trails on the west side farther west. The Alizon Creek, that's the longest one going right now. It's 2.9 miles. Calabar Tributary, this is one that's in District 6 that goes from Cathedral Rock Park to Tezel Road. French Creek Greenway Project, that's in District 7. That's going to connect one of the biggest, nicest kind of parks in San Antonio. Well, it's among many, right? But 90 Falcone Park is one of the prominent ones on that side of town. That'll now be connected in with the entire Greenway Trail system using French Creek. And then the Huebner Creek Trail connection, that's also in District 7. That's at Crystal Hill Drive. And that'll connect a large residential community in with the Greenways. We've been trying to do a lot of projects recently that tie more residences in with the larger Greenway Trail program to increase park access and kind of beef up that 10-minute walk goal, so that we're trying to offer more walkable, bikeable connections to the people that live right around the Greenway trails. Next slide. So on some of the larger trail system connections, and when I say major trail system connections on this slide and some of the next slides, I'm talking about ones that are connecting large systems such as Leon and Salato, Medina, and Westside Creeks. So some of the recent ones that have been completed are the Medina River Greenway to the San Antonio River Trail system. That's a 17.5 mile system that's now connected in to the San Antonio River Trails there at Mission Espada, also known as the Mission Reach. The Westside Creeks to the San Antonio River, that's mainly using Apache Creek, and all of the trails, including Martinez, Alizon, Zarzamora, all pretty much run into Apache Creek, which feeds into the San Antonio River. That's connected, and we're continuing to build that out as we speak. Of the future major system connections that we have, some of the ones that are funded are the Leon Creek Greenway to Solada Creek Greenway connection, which again I'll cover more in just a minute, and then the Salato North to Salato South pieces, which we get asked about a lot. That's going along the eastern border of Fort Sam Houston. Then we have some unfunded ones that are part of the future plan, but still have yet to be funded. That's the Solada Creek Greenway to the San Antonio River Greenway Trail systems, the Leon North to Leon South systems, and that's going to be around Lackland Air Force Base and continuing south through District 4 and connecting over to the Medina River Greenway Trail area. The Leon Greenway to Medina River Greenway, that's farther south again. The Leon Creek Greenway and Westside Creeks. And Ryan, if you could go to the next slide, we can go ahead and start talking about some of those major connections. So this is the one that's going to be completed soonest. We're expecting this one to be done by the end of September, and this will connect all of Solada Creek Greenway, which is currently about 20 miles long, to the 18 miles that are done on Leon already. So it'll be, including the miles that are going to be completed with this project, be a total of around 40 miles of trails that are all connected to one another. So that's going to be the biggest connection that we've made so far in terms of just pure length. And that's something that I'm super excited to be finally bringing to fruition after all these years. And I know a lot of people are super excited about that. So we're really proud of that. And I'm sure we will probably be having some kind of an event to celebrate that in the coming months. You can go to the next slide, Brian. So here's some pictures of some of the amenities that are included around the Eisenhower Park Trailhead, which will act as that connector point, kind of the northernmost terminus of both Leon and Salato are right there at Eisenhower Park. And so we really wanted to do this trailhead right, make it unique to reflect the character of the area, obviously, of Eisenhower Park, but also to kind of highlight the fact that it's this junction between these two major systems. So you can see on the pictures here, we have a customized trailhead kiosk that's got some big boulders there and kind of indicative of some of the native materials that we're using along the greenways with those boulders. And there's some little cactus planted in there and some nice touches like that. You'll see on the right of that, as part of the Solada Greenway, this low water crossing is right in front of what they call the medicine wall, which is a large, it's a very tall climbing wall that has been used for years. And Parks and Recreation, thankfully, were able to facilitate that property to be granted from private ownership over to Texas Climbers Coalition, so they can manage that property, and so that people can do rock climbing right next to the Greenway. They can access that climbing wall from the Greenway Trail. Going down to the pictures below, you'll see that Howard W. Peak Greenway Trails logo on the left. That was part of a mosaic that was done as part of the Greenway Trail connection there at Eisenhower Park, the trailhead that we completed. We've got some more pictures here in a minute of that area, but I just wanted to take a minute and please invite you guys to please come out and look at that. It's a beautiful trailhead, and you'll see we've got a lot of trail completed out to the Salato side, and we have that trail going toward Leon that is currently under construction. Next slide, please. So here are some of the other pictures of that trailhead there at Eisenhower Park. You'll see that we've got a butterfly garden that includes some wildflower seed plantings that we did. There were a lot of wildflowers already growing in Eisenhower Park, but we were able to complement that with more seeding. And we also did an interpretive sign there, you can see, with the butterfly benches to highlight that butterfly garden. We also have these large flower sculptures that were installed as part of Public Art San Antonio's Bloom project. It's basically a project by an artist that has gone through PASA, that they're putting these large interpretations of wildflowers in the San Antonio region all around parks and trails in San Antonio. So we were lucky to be a part of their plan for that, and we're able to put 3 of those flowers here at the Eisenhower Park trailhead. Next slide, please. So the next one I wanted to talk about is the Medina River Greenway. This is also one that's been a long time coming. It's been built in phases. It was built in about 4 phases, and it's now all completed. It goes all the way from the Medina River Natural Area over to Mission Espada there. That's the Mission Espada has been in the past the southern terminus of the Mission Trail system there along the Salato, along the San Antonio River. And so we were able to extend that farther south using the Medina River Greenway Trail system. Next slide, please. And here are some pictures of that. The picture on the left is of the hike and bike trail that goes through some of the property that was donated to the city by the developer of that TJ Maxx distribution center there at the south side. That's very near the, we call it the Espada development because it's right next to Mission Espada. The next one, of course, this picture of the huge oak tree is also part of the Medina River Greenway Trail system there. There's a lot of beautiful nature around that area, and it's very different from some of the other Greenway trails because it's so far out. There's not a lot of residential development or any development at all really around there. And so if you really want to get away from it all, that's the place to go. Next slide, please. And here's a map of the West Side Creeks. So I spoke a minute ago about the trails that are under construction. You can see the longest one there is Alizine Creek. It's 2.9 miles that goes, that will connect the trail there that's already been built in green near Woodlawn Lake Park. It'll connect that trail and Woodlawn Lake Park, all the activities going on there with that Alizine Creek trail network that continues south and will tie in with Apache and then go there along San Pedro for a very short distance where it connects then to the San Antonio River trails just south of downtown. That's kind of south of the Eagle Land area on the Mission Trails that ultimately tie in with the rest of the Mission Trails. And of course, you know, what this all means is that anybody there along Zarzamora Creek, along Alzon Creek, Martinez, any of those would be able to potentially commute from their locations there, their residential communities, the densely populated residential areas around around the west side. So they would be able to get to downtown, go to the Riverwalk, or commute to any potential job opportunities that might be downtown. And so we're super excited also about these connections that are being made. Next slide, please, Ryan. So here's some pictures of the West Side Creeks Greenways. So you'll see the trailhead from Martinez Creek there on the left. These were some trail riders that we were able to catch with our photographs there in the middle. And then the bridge on the right that you see is one that's recently completed on Zarzamora Creek. And then on the picture below it is also more trails that you see along the Apache. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just cover a few other recent accomplishments that we've had on the Greenways. This is one that's on Maverick Creek. Like I mentioned before, we're trying to do a lot of neighborhood types of connections, more connections running along the tributaries that run into some of these major creeks like Leon Creek and Solada Creek. This is a tributary. Maverick Creek is a tributary that ties in with the Leon Creek Greenway system. And you can see the low water crossing here crosses Maverick Creek. You've got the new trailhead features beneath it. And by the way, I'll also mention that you've got that unique color to the trash cans, the bike racks, the bike repair station that's at that trailhead. That's part of a trail design strategy that was done where some custom colors were chosen to sort of highlight the characteristics of the different areas of town within the Howard W. Peak Greenway Trail System. And you can see the map on the right, all those green trails that are highlighted there are part of the Maverick Creek Greenway Trail System. And one other important factor to this is that there's going to be a new park built very soon that's going to be called Dan Markson Park. That's going to be right there on Babcock Road. And that's going to be a special needs park where there'll be a lot of accessible playground features that are built into that park, specifically to provide for special needs children and even adults. There's going to be a restroom with a changing station that's ADA compliant. All of the playground equipment is ADA compliant and designed specifically for children with disabilities. So we're very proud of that. Ryan, next slide. And then this is the trailhead I mentioned over at Solada Creek on East Commerce. We're trying to improve the number of trailheads, the number of parking areas, the number of amenities, drinking fountains, and other opportunities on the east side. And this is one way that we're doing that. So you see we've got a low impact development parking area and those custom colors again showing there for the Salato Greenway. I will mention also that we've done more and more and more of the parking areas recently out of low impact development design standards. So you'll see a lot more pervious, pervious parking areas so that we've got bioswales, pervious parking, so that the water is being filtered before it runs from the concrete and the asphalt near it that collects all those pollutants from the cars. It's filtering those pollutants before the water gets to the creek. Next slide. This is another one on the east side where we were trying to connect a neighborhood that had previously been completely isolated from the Greenway. It was cut off by the creek, so there was no way to get to the Solada Creek Greenway. Although it's only a few hundred feet from their neighborhood, there was no way to get to it other than getting in the car. And so this provides an accessible connection to those neighbors. It's a very large neighborhood, and we've been looking for those opportunities to provide that park access for more and more and more residents using the Greenway Trail connections. Next slide. So in talking about future Greenway Trails funding, the San Antonio River Authority has a Rivers and Creeks program that they have proposed to the city and to Bear County that's worth $83.7 million. And that would cover multiple Howard W. Peak Greenway trails. It would also, in addition to Greenway trails, their Rivers and Creeks program includes a larger package of other projects that are focused on water quality, focused on, they have other trail projects and a lot of other types of amenities. But in regards to specifically the Howard W. Peak Greenway Trail System, there's $83.7 million identified for projects related to that program. And it's a matter now of San Antonio River Authority eventually getting back to Commissioner's Court and trying to establish the funding source for that. We've also recently applied for what they call a RAISE grant. It's a federal grant. Our application was for $25 million for 7.1 miles of trail along Zarzamore Creek and Ingram Road that would connect the Westside Creek Greenway Trail System to the Leon Creek Greenway Trail System. That was one of those major trail connections I mentioned earlier. That's something that's going to be really, really important for just the overall connectivity between systems and potential that in the future people could commute from one place to another and really start using the trails for more than just recreation, but also using it to get to destinations that are not necessarily in their part of town. We have also applied for recently transportation improvement dollars under the MPO. It's $3 million for the 3.7 mile Fort Sam Houston connection. Now, the $3 million we've applied for is in addition to funding that we already have set aside for that trail. That trail is already fully funded. And so if this $3 million is captured, this would be something that we could put into other projects. We could recapture, we could do improvements, more improvements to the Fort Sam connection, but also potentially do other things with the $3 million that would be offset by those cost savings. In the future, we're also looking at potentially applying for additional TIP funds for other trails around the city of San Antonio. That's an opportunity that's been identified as a really good potential future opportunity for funding for Greenway trails in the future by our transportation director, Homer, and she have had a lot of discussions, and we're looking at future opportunities for that as well. And then we're also including, or at least discussing inclusion of some of the Greenway Trail projects along the Howard W. Peak system in the 2022 bond, the city's bond. Next slide, please. The future project planning. So this would be for any of the projects that we get funded. For any of the funding sources I just covered, whatever we're trying to do with future trails, they're going to be shaped, those goals and objectives are going to be shaped by council. They're going to be prioritized through the advisory boards, both the Parks Board and also namely the Linear Creekway Parks Advisory Board, of course. We will be making staff recommendations as per all of those priorities that are identified by council and the advisory boards. We will also be looking at ways to implement some of the things that were identified as part of the trail use survey. So the trail use survey was something that was done last fall and was wrapped up toward the end of last year and beginning part of this year. You can see the bullets here. Continued focus on both the circle completion, so the citywide circle of Greenway trails that connect with Leon, Salato, Medina, and the Westside Creeks. So that's something that is a high priority for people per the trail survey, was to complete that circle, but also to continue to do more and more connections along those tributaries and connect them with residential areas. Another one is to expand the hours of the Greenway trails. Now, this is something that may not be able to be done everywhere, but we are looking at it in certain locations, and how might we be able to sort of roll that out in a way that makes sense for the future expansion of the Greenway trails. Commuter use is something else that's been discussed recently. That is something that we have on our radar. That is going to be included, for instance, in the RAISE grant application, where we are looking at making Zarzamora Creek one of those commuter-friendly types of corridors. And we would potentially be doing other corridors along the greenways to retrofit or build new trails that would be more open to bicyclists used to be able to get to and from a work destination. And then continued expansion of trail amenities. That was also identified by people in the trail survey, such as, for instance, the shade structures, drinking fountains, wayfinding signage, and those types of amenities. Next slide, please. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments?
This is Eric. I'd like to just say, Brennan, this is a great presentation, and so much has grown in the last couple of years with the trail. So I want to thank you for your hard work. I'm thrilled to hear this focus on transportation and thinking about, it's very forward thinking, because and thinking about that the trails may need to be expanded or have some auxiliary trails going so that they can actually be used as a means to get back and forth from places. They're a gem. I don't know, did you read the article in the Current that came out the last couple of weeks by Bill Baird, where he walked the entire necklace, including it was pretty interesting. But I feels like there's just a huge it's people are thrilled with these Greenway trails, and seeing them connected like that's amazing. I may have some questions, but I'm gonna shut up and let you talk.
I'll just quickly respond. Yeah, I've heard and seen similar articles and reports from people just privately. Even there was something I heard today about a lady who was 85 years old trying to make her way around the whole system. I've heard people losing weight on the Greenway trails and different things of that sort. And so it's really exciting. I would just echo that the feedback that we're getting from people has been really, really positive. And so, I know everybody from Parks and Recreation, including myself, of course, are very excited to be part of it.
Any other comments or questions? It was a great presentation. Thank you so very much.
Eric, I know you may have mentioned you have a few questions. If you wanted to reach out offline, we can go ahead and connect you and Brandon, or if you had anything you want to add in here publicly.
No, I mean, just about the funding. So the like 83 million from SARA, is that potential funding, or is that something that we've locked in? Because I know this was like a source of anxiety of where the funding would come. And I think that most of the board is probably, worried and wants this to continue. So.
Yeah, it is not locked in yet. It is the funding plan. Commissioners Court took a resolution to basically reiterate that here's what's on the table. It's $83.7 million and 26.2 miles of trail. And that is something that they're still working through to, as you put it, secure the funding, gonna make it happen. We'll see all of that transpire over the next few months. And if we get that locked in, it's gonna be really comparable to, I think, what we would have seen had there been another tax issuance, and really just continuing the momentum. Concurrent, though, with Tamika's arrival in the city, one of the things that, while we're all focused on preparations for the FY22 budget, the minute we get that done, we'll be looking at updating the transportation improvement plan that would make us eligible to continue to leverage these resources and pursue other opportunities beyond what the county would do. So we're not just putting all our eggs in that county basket, but we're going to continue to see how we can extend this. And so we'll see a lot of, hopefully, solidify here between now and the end of the calendar year. But, you know, we're hard at work and really looking forward to still drive forward that mission while being very thoughtful. I know, you know, Jeanette Hunterman has a comment that says, appreciate all the attention to details and elevating unique community characteristics. And, you know, I think that's the thoughtful approach that we want to bring to our hike and bike trail system, which I say that because we're pivoting to where some elements, it may be more transportation focused and less just hike and bike centric, or so we're in a little bit of a transition period here, but it's a good thing. So, you know, while we want to be thoughtful to the details for each unique segment, we also need to be thinking from a design perspective, what does that look like? And really all it means is the model is changing, and clearly price points are probably going to rise as we start to build some of this transportation element into the future growth of the system, or those that we need to go back and retrofit. So a lot of information in there, but nothing is solidified yet. We're continuing to work with all the partners to continue to drive forward the plan. And the other thing I would leave everyone with, so for everything that Brandon showed today, we will have these projects into production. I believe it's through calendar year 2024. So while a lot's already kind of been set in motion, it's still going to take a little while. And so we do have some projects that will sustain development as we hopefully have that seamless transition from what sales tax has done to other sources of funding.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you again, Brandon. And now our next item is the director's report. Homer.
Yes, Madam Chair. So in the director's report, we'll cover a couple of things. I want to begin with the budget development process. So the city manager presented a trial budget to council on June 16th. And then I think it looks like a week later, week and a half later, we went into city council goal setting work session that was at Convention Center. And, you know, I was there, I was able to sit in and listen. Parks was not required to make a presentation or didn't have any questions come up that needed to be addressed. But from my takeaway, when there was kind of a cap on the day and looking at what some of the summary comments were from council, there were clearly some new priorities for city council and things that they like to see funded. And then the question was, well, if we're going to fund these new items, then where does that money come from? And there was not an appetite for any reductions for parks. So that's certainly a good thing. While council has been at recess this month, we have been working with city manager's office, Office of Management and Budget, on just preparing for what will lead up to the proposed budget on August 12th to city council. We will break out of that into what would be several budget work sessions by, you know, many departments. Parks does not have a date yet. I don't believe a calendar has been set for any of those presentations other than they would happen subsequent to the proposed budget on August 12th, and then the budget adoption for fiscal year 22 on September 16th. So in that 4-week period, that's when we'll have all these work sessions. And then of course, the operating year begins October 1. So that's kind of where we're at in the budget development process right now. And we're looking forward to having that opportunity to present to City Council the parks budget. And as that information becomes available and those dates are known, we'll make sure that we share with everybody here this evening and our other advisory boards so that they're aware of when we'll have that work session with City Council. But that's where we're at from a budget development perspective. I don't know if there's any questions on that I can answer for anybody. Okay, so in our next kind of round out the presentation, wanted to kind of highlight what our aquatics programming looks like. Of course, we know that while we have 24 outdoor pools and we would love to have more than 9 open, you know, one of the things that we've really had to grapple with this season is a shortage of lifeguards. It is not a localized issue. It is something that other operators in town certainly are experiencing, but in looking across the industry and even statewide, there's just been a real hard time getting enough lifeguards so that pools can be open. However, we are at the peak of our season, which this past weekend, we had our 9th pool open at Springtime Park in District 8. So I would like to kind of turn it over to Nikki just to highlight some other things and fun happenings with our pools this season.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Excuse me, as Homer mentioned, and it's a little bit confusing this year, so hopefully the way it's laid out is helpful. So to maximize the number of pools we were able to open, given the quantity of lifeguards we were able to bring on board, what we did was we modified the schedules a little bit, because it used to be all of our pools would be open every day but Monday in the summers. And what we've done is you'll see that we have a handful that are open Mondays and Wednesdays, a handful that are open Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then all of them are open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we know that's the weekends are really heavy use times for us, so they're all open at that time. But we did stagger them a little bit throughout the week, but there is something open in every area. So it's, of course, may not be the one right next to you, but we wanted to make sure that we were in each area of town. So as Homer mentioned, we opened our 9th pool springtime this past weekend. So then what will happen is starting August 9th, which is right around the corner, we will start scaling back the pools to a modified schedule. And when I say that, that means we will have some that will close. We will have some that will revert back to the pre-summer hours, which means they were open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in the evening, and then they were open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Excuse me, just Saturday and Sunday. And then we will have a handful that will keep the summer hours. So I will tell you, if, just in case you're wondering if there's method to our madness and how we do it, a lot of it is driven by the school districts where our facilities lie. And we do the same on our summer youth program as well. So we know where we have kids that are going back to school that work for us, or, you know, adults that work in the school systems that go back, or the kids that are coming to the pool, they're going back to school. So it doesn't make as much sense to have those open when our primary clientele will now be back in school. So that's how we start timing things. So we do that, we will be doing that, and then we will eventually go back to our traditional, where it's just a handful of pools. The 4 regionals will be open in the evenings, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then just Saturday and Sunday. So we are going to start our transition out come August 9th, but there's still plenty of opportunity for people to go. So that being said, we also took the opportunity this year to try a movie in the pool. We've done this a couple of times at the natatorium. This is the first time we've done it in outdoor pools, at least since I've been here, so it's been more than a decade. We did one 2 weekends ago at Elmendorf. We showed Finding Dory, and it was great. We had folks register. We had folks show up. We had, there was a family that was having a party at the splash pad, and a lot of the kids came over from the party and came in. So we had guards in the pool, outside the pool. We started it late because we have to wait for it to get dark, so it started around 8:45. But it was really good. Everybody had a really good time. Everybody behaved, no issues. So we're going to be doing it again. In August, we'll be showing Lilo and Stitch at San Pedro. So if you know either of those pools, San Pedro is probably 5 times the size of Elmendorf, so we will be able to get more folks in there. But it's free, and it's a good opportunity for families to get together and utilize the pools during the season, just in a different way. So, so we're excited. You know, of course, we would have loved to have all the pools open, but I think we've really been able to maximize our offerings with what we were able to open. So we did free swim lessons. Actually, they're running through the whole month of July, so we'll be wrapping those up soon, but we were able to do free swim lessons again. Of course, fewer people because we had fewer pools open, but every pool that was open had free swim lessons, group swim lessons through the month of July. So that was pretty cool that we were able to still do that as well. So I don't know, I don't think I missed anything, Homer. I know we mentioned we have splash pads there as well. So the splash pads aren't all like, you know, we do have Lincoln Pool has a splash pad right behind it, but Pearsall, they're all just good opportunities. It's hot. We all know it's hot. It's an opportunity to cool off. So, you know, Benavides, Lincoln, Pearsall, I'm sure I'm going to miss, I'm sure I'm missing some.
Elmendorf.
There you go. The Branson, yeah, we opened it right before we did the pool. Thank you. I mentioned that with the party. Yes, you're right. That was right next to the pool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so they're good opportunities, a lot of opportunities for people to stay cool in this hot summertime.
Well, and I'll piggyback off of that. And the other thing that in the category of staying cool, so our Government and Public Affairs Office did put out a press release that there will be cooling centers open now through Saturday, July 31, because of just the extreme heat and heat index. And so Parks is part of that cooling center plan. And we have 25 facilities that are part of that plan. And so we will share that information with everybody just so that you can share with the public. But again, it's just due to the expected high heat indexes that those cooling centers are now going to be active, and that is now through July 31.
Okay. I think that completes your director's report. If there's any questions for Homer at this point.
Are there any questions for Homer or Nikki at this point from the director's report? Yes, Alex?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Our final tidbit to this evening is to kind of look at how we move forward. We have, as the city is beginning to progress with increased vaccinations and whatnot in the city, we do have the option as a board, should the board elect to continue to meet virtually or meet in person. So at this point, there is no pressure either way. There is no necessarily direction of which direction the boards or commissions within the city have to go. It is all at the discretion of the board. So Kathy wanted to make sure that she kind of said, well, I don't necessarily want to make that decision myself. I want to make sure that the board is comfortable. And so at this point, we have our next board meeting, which would be scheduled for September 27th. And so that decision point we would need this evening is everyone's comfort level of to meet in person or to meet virtually. Meeting in person, we would not necessarily propose coming downtown at the chair's request, as well as kind of our request. There's a lot of construction right here on Commerce right now and kind of getting in and out of the tower. You know, for just a little bit longer is just a little bit of a headache. So we would potentially propose to meet at Roosevelt Clubhouse, just south of downtown. We can double check availability. So I won't necessarily 100% lock in that location, but we would still try and do a location that is centrally located. So what we are looking for this evening is any sort of meeting format, and whether that would be virtual or in person. I would definitely would love to hear about from any of the new or reappointed members, as well as anyone in general. Chuck, who is in via phone, did submit his request for potentially moving to in person. But again, we want to make sure everyone is comfortable in whatever they choose. So we'll just kind of open it up for any discussion.
Ryan, there's a question in the chat on the related to what you're just bringing up right now.
Yep, I made sure to include that just now when we talked about hearing from new and reappointed members as well.
Are there any, do you want to meet in person or do you want to continue virtually? I come down in person every month, so you people need to speak up. Virtual or meet in person?
I see someone in the chat. Eric is okay with in person. Chuck is okay with in person. So we have 2 so far. Is there...
This is Allison. I'm happy to do in person or virtual. I am comfortable meeting in person.
Okay. So what we'll say, it looks like now we're kind of moving towards 3 in person. I will say if there's anyone who has some stronger objections and maybe not necessarily wanting to speak up, you can also in the chat send me a private message as well. If we have a couple of real strong oppositions for in person, we will continue. We could continue to do virtual for just a little bit longer. So as of now, you know, I see. Looks like I'm kind of leaning more a couple towards in person. I do have 1 for virtual. Would still like to hear from a couple of our other folks, our board members, Ms. Walker, Alejandro, Jeanette.
I'm fine with in person.
Melinda.
Whichever.
I'm fine with either, Ryan. It's good either way for me.
Okay. Carla, just a second.
I'm fine either way.
Okay. Carla, you should be able to go and take yourself off mute. There's a little microphone or mute button towards the bottom.
Hello?
There we go.
Oh, okay. I'm fine either way, mutual or virtual.
Okay.
Make it easy on everybody, whichever way goes.
Perfect. So it looks like we're kind of moving towards an in-person. If we do have a strong objection, as we get closer to September, I'll do one last double check with everyone early September as we kind of move forward to confirm that everyone is okay with meeting, resuming meeting in person, and we'll also work to confirm a location. Whatever location we do meet, we'll make sure that it is spaced and does have some distance as well to make sure that we are meeting safely as well. So that will kind of work towards meeting in person. Jeanette, I did see your question. I'll get to that in just a second about the reappointments. We have one more request of the chair to kind of just chat about our meeting date. So the request is to kind of, do we want to continue meeting the 4th Monday of every other month, or are we wanting to potentially modify that to the 2nd Monday or the 1st Tuesday? Is there any sort of questions or concerns? The point of reference you'll see on the screen, I did include our meeting dates for the rest of 21 and all of 22 to see if there would be any conflicts. So at this point, our main conflicts would be the week of our November meetings, because that will conflict with Thanksgiving. So we can, you know, choose to modify that meeting as a whole, or we can choose in general if the 4th Monday tends to be harder for some folks. Any open discussion or any issues?
My experience with our neighborhood association, when you schedule something during Thanksgiving week, nobody shows up.
Yes, sir.
We just postpone it 1 week over.
Yes, sir. We'll, of course, make sure. So what we're looking for as well, obviously, definitely with our 2 November meetings, we will need to make adjustments on those, whether we move forward a week before or after. I think the larger question real quick is there an appetite to move the meetings as a whole away from the 4th Monday of every month, or to go ahead and leave it as is on the 4th Monday of every month for at least the time being?
The 4th Monday works for me. This is Melinda.
Okay. Jeanette says 4th Monday. Chuck has said 4th Monday.
I'm good with 4th Monday.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, it looks like fourth Monday.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead and leave it the fourth Monday. We will do in September. We will set a brief action item to formally move November's meeting. We can begin to look at your calendars as we look into September to whether you prefer to move it a week before or move it into like the first week of December. So we'll look through that as we move forward. And the final thing about our board format would be looking at future agenda topics. I sent out a email to board members a couple weeks ago looking at what are some of the topics that you would like to hear from as we move forward. We definitely received some really good feedback. I think we were able to address a couple of those tonight with some of our trail presentation, but I still know we do have some other topics coming up that board members have sent in. So I just want to continue to thank you for your feedback. We will work to continue to include some of those topics as we move forward. As we look for September, we are looking at bringing our tree program annually by ordinance. We do have to present our tree program for the year to the Parks Board, so that will come in September. We'll also be looking at potentially doing a bond program update. We try and get our public works team to kind of come twice a year to do a kind of an update on where we're at bond projects, but we also may have some clarity on what we're looking at for not only existing 2017 bond, but as we move forward to 2022 bonds. And then we may also look to have some conversation we'll have a third topic that will be probably incorporate one of our board member topics. We've had great conversation, suggestions relating to climate change or, wildlife in parks, looking at with egress as well as other, how do we balance recreation space and use of amenities with the wildlife. So we will look at definitely including a lot of those topics as we move forward to future meetings. So continue to send those forward as you think of ideas that you would like to hear. That would be great. So with that, I don't believe we have any more, we don't have any additional topics for the board, with the exception of we will make sure in August to get on the off months to get a monthly board update out. We want to make sure we are continuing to engage and talk about what's coming up. We'll make sure we have that information related to budget. We will have that as that schedule gets released with our proposed budget and our August update. We'll make sure to include some key snippets from our proposed budget as well as when our presentation would be as well. So, so I do have, with that, is there any other additional comments I'm missing, Homer? I do see a comment, Jeanette, reappointment. So we're at the time period where everyone is in the status of holdover, with the exception of one board member who has already been reappointed. So everyone is considered in holdover status by city charter. All board members' terms end May 31st of an election year. So every board member's terms technically expires May 31 of 21, but everyone will remain in holdover status and still an active voting board member until you are either reappointed by your council member or a council member provides a new appointment. So I definitely encourage you, if you are interested in still serving on the board, to reach out to your council member to make that interest known so that they can move forward with the appointment. Just briefly how that process works, the council member will submit a memo to the clerk's office, either reappointing or appointing a new member to represent their district on the Parks Board, at which point then the clerk's office will then put that item onto the next available agenda. So if you have already reached out to your council member or mayor's office or whatnot, I would definitely encourage you to go ahead and do so. If you already have, maybe do a quick follow-up so we can get that over to the clerk's office. As a reminder, everyone does need to do an application online on the city clerk's office as well. That is available on the city clerk's office, even if you are for reappointment. So that helps kind of generate that process. So if you've not already done so, make sure you go ahead and hop onto the city clerk's office. I can make sure to send that link out as well as a follow-up to this meeting. So with that, is there any follow-up comments? Carla, I will follow up with you offline. So if there's anything else for the good of the...
Any other comments, questions? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Eric and a second.
A second.
Second, that was Carla. Thank you, ma'am. Perfect.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Great. We'll see everyone in September, and I will reach out with a follow-up email this week with our Parks Board clerk application and an update in August. Thank you so much, everyone.